This is a recap of 1332 exceptions, basically common law exceptions and aggregations. So, to start with, the basic rule is that you need complete diversity and amount in controversy, and that is evaluated per claim. What you should see is that there's nothing in these two requirements that says anything about whether it's a state or federal claim. But in fact, most 1332 claims are state claims because if you had a federal cause of action, that would be an easy 1331 claim and you don't have to deal with diversity or mountain controversy at all. Okay, so that's the basics. So then we get to some things where even though you satisfy those two requirements, you might not have 1332 because the statute has been interpreted by the courts to exclude certain things that, as a policy matter, state courts are considered better to deal with. In particular, divorce, child custody, alimony, and also probate issues. So those things, even though technically they satisfy the statute, are still excluded. Okay, now the other issue that sometimes is tricky is aggregation. Basically, the rule is if you have a single plaintiff and a single defendant, you can aggregate as many claims as you want to achieve the amount in controversy. So, in other words, if each claim is under $75,000, you can add them all up to make sure you do exceed $75,000. So whereas usually you need one claim over $75,000, if you have one plaintiff, one defendant, you can aggregate all the claims. And as we said before, state claims are totally the norm for 1332. Okay. Now, I think what's tricky is figuring out what is aggregation versus what sometimes people might think is aggregation but is not. So let's consider a few examples. So on the left, we have a single plaintiff, single defendant, which is a situation where aggregation is typically fine. And we have three different claims. So the usual rule is that if each one was worth $30,000, you could add them up. 30 times 3 is 90, and that would exceed $75,000, and that would be fine for having 1332 SMJ for all three of the claims, even though the usual rule is that you evaluate SMJ per claim, because this is an exception to the usual rule. Now let's consider two other situations that are a little bit different and technically not aggregation. So basically we're talking about joint tortfeasors and joint owners. So in the first situation where you have a negligence claim, you really only have one claim against two parties, either of which could entirely satisfy the judgment. So in that case, you're not really aggregating claims, you really only have one claim, so you don't have to worry about aggregation. In the second scenario with the breach of contract claim, again, you technically only have one claim, and this is a breach of contract claim against two people who jointly own something, such as a house or a car. They each have undivided interest in it. So what's the difference between a joint tortfeasor and a joint owner? Well, they're different because they're different causes of action. Joint tortfeasors are only involved with negligence claims. So it means that either one is 100% liable for the judgment. Joint owners is a little bit different. With joint owners, you basically have to include both owners because one alone couldn't satisfy the judgment. Now, the details of what's different between joint tortfeasors and joint owners may not be so clear because you haven't taken contracts yet, but for your purposes, all you need to know that in both of these situations, you have one claim, not multiple claims, so it's not really aggregation. Okay, so now I want to talk about some of the things in this third quiz, number 6, that I think people were confused on. I'm not sure if it was because they forgot to do multiple select or not, but I'll just run through each of these scenarios. So the first one on the left is what the description you saw in the quiz, and on the right is sort of a graphical display. So basically, Adam from Alaska has 3 claims against Beatrice from Washington. So there's complete diversity, they're from different states, and it's one plaintiff, one defendant, so the rule is you can aggregate. So 50 plus 70 plus 10 is $80,000. there is 1331 SMJ for this scenario. So that should be a basic aggregation thing. Next scenario involves a claim by Acme against an unincorporated association, so you use all the citizenships of its members, and you will see that there's complete diversity, but that's not really the issue here, because what we have is a federal, not a state law claim. So although I wrote out all the citizenships, this is actually an easy 1331 claim because the claim arises under federal law, and as you should remember, diversity of citizenship does not matter, and there is no amount in controversy requirement. So that's fine under 1331. Okay, next scenario. So this is, oops, sorry. Let me go back here. Options 3 and 4. I think this is where some people got confused. So basically, this is showing what I talked about before, the difference between joint tortfeasors and joint owners to a contract claim. So on the left, choice 3, when you have a claim against joint tortfeasors, that's just one single claim, and there is 1332 because Illinois is diverse from Massachusetts, and $100,000 is more than $75,000. On the right side, that's an example of a single contract claim against joint owners, two people who both own the house, such as husband and wife, or any other combination of two people who jointly own a house. So both of these are fine. So that's the basics on aggregation and 1332. If you still have questions, let me know, but hopefully that helps. Thanks.